They tried to kill him with a whip. 500 lashes. He took 499. And then he told them they still owed him one. 25 years later, that same scarred man walked onto a cow pasture in South Carolina, and in under 1 hour, he erased the most feared army the British Empire had in all of America. This is not the story of a general who went to West Point. This is the story of Daniel Morgan, an illiterate wagon driver, a frontier brawler, a man the British Army whipped and lived to regret it for the rest of their lives. The year was 1756. The place, a muddy British camp on the American frontier. Daniel Morgan was 20 years old, 6 feet 2 inches tall, 220 pounds of pure muscle. He could not read a single word. He could not write his own name. But he could drive a wagon through hell, and he could throw a punch that dropped a man where he stood. It started with an argument, over a broken wagon wheel, over nothing. A British lieutenant, young, arrogant, wearing that red coat like it made him a god, walked right up to Morgan. And then he did it. He struck him, across the face, with the flat of his sword. A casual act, a reminder. Know your place, Colonial. Morgan's answer was instant. No words, no hesitation. Just raw, unfiltered frontier force. His fist connected. The lieutenant dropped, unconscious in the dirt. In that single second, Daniel Morgan crossed a line that men like him were never, ever supposed to cross. The British Army did not forgive defiance, especially not from a rough, uneducated wagon driver with no rank and no status. The punishment was decided within the hour. 500 lashes, at the whipping post, a number so high it wasn't meant to correct behavior. It was meant to end a life. They dragged him to the post, tied his hands high above his head, shirt torn off, back exposed to the entire camp. The whip they used was called a cat o' nine tails, 9 braided leather cords, each one tipped with heavy knots, designed for one purpose, to tear flesh from bone. Men had died from 200 lashes. 500 was a death sentence. The drummer stepped forward, a boy, maybe 14, sweating. Officers gathered around, some of them smiling, some of them placing bets. How long would he last? Crack. 1. Crack. 2. Crack. 3. Morgan didn't scream. He didn't beg. He lifted his head, stared straight ahead, and began to count with the drummer. Out loud. By 10, blood was running down his back. By 20, his skin was splitting open. By 50, most men would have passed out from shock. Morgan was still counting. 100. At 100, survival was unlikely. 200. At 200, survival was nearly impossible. But Morgan's voice never broke. 300. 400. Each number was not just pain. Each number was defiance. Each number was control. A refusal to give his enemies what they wanted. Finally, it stopped. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. The officer stepped forward, smirking. That is 500. Morgan lifted his head, blood in his teeth, and he said the words that would follow him for the rest of their lives. That was 499. You still owe me one. The camp went dead silent. The British thought they had broken a man. What they had actually done was create one. After the war, Morgan went back to Winchester, Virginia. This was not a city. This was the edge of the world. The frontier, a place where law was weak and men were strong. Winchester in the 1760s was whiskey, gambling, and violence. And Daniel Morgan fit right in. They called him the bully of Battletown, not because he was cruel, because he was the man you did not want to fight. 6'2", broad shoulders, hands like anvils. He drank too much. He gambled too much. He fought too often. Court records from that time show his name again and again. Assault, disturbance, fighting. But people respected him because he was real, because he was honest. His job was a wagoner, driving heavy supply wagons through the Appalachian Mountains, through snow, through mud, through Indian territory. It was dangerous work. It built endurance. It taught him logistics, how to move men, food, and ammunition when everything was falling apart. Skills that would one day win him a war. Within 2 years, he owned his own wagons, his own horses. People started calling him the old wagoner. He was 24 years old, and he thought that would be his life. Then came the French and Indian War. Britain versus France for control of North America. Morgan signed on as a wagon driver for General Edward Braddock. Braddock was a perfect British officer. Red coat, white wig, straight lines. He marched 1,400 men through 100 miles of dense American forest, like it was a parade in London. The French and their native allies did not fight like that. They hid behind trees. They shot from cover. They targeted the officers first. In 15 minutes, Braddock's army was destroyed. 700 men dead. General Braddock himself shot off his horse, dying in the dirt. Morgan survived, not because he followed orders, but because he did the opposite. He ran, he hid, he adapted. That day, he learned the most important lesson of his life. European tactics did not work in American woods. Speed beat discipline, cover beat courage, and that lesson would save thousands of lives later. The war ended. Morgan went home. He bought land. He married Abigail Curry. He had daughters. He tried to live a quiet life. But the man with 499 scars could not stay quiet for long. 1775, the American Revolution began. Congress needed one thing: men who could shoot. Morgan raised a company in 10 days, 600 miles, from Winchester to Boston, 21 days on foot. His men did not look like soldiers. They wore hunting shirts. They carried long rifles, rifles that were accurate at 300 yards, while British muskets were lucky to hit anything at 80. They were called Morgan's sharpshooters. Their job was simple: kill the officers, at Boston, at Quebec. They did exactly that. Quebec, December 1775, minus 20 degrees, men freezing to death. Morgan led the attack into the city, fighting from house to house. Then the other American commanders panicked and stopped. The British counterattacked. They trapped Morgan. The British offered him a deal. "Join us. We will make you a colonel in the British Army." Morgan looked at them and said nothing. He broke his sword instead of surrendering it. 7 months in a British prison. He came out thinner, angrier, and far more dangerous. 1777, Saratoga, New York. This was where Morgan became a legend. General Burgoyne's British Army was marching south from Canada. Morgan and his 500 riflemen were sent to stop them. Their orders were simple: shoot anyone on a horse. Shoot anyone with an officer's sash. Shoot anyone who looked important. And they did. One shot, one officer down, again and again. It broke the British morale. At Saratoga, an entire British army surrendered. 6,000 men. This victory convinced France to join the war. This victory changed everything. So how did Congress reward Daniel Morgan? They promoted younger men, men with political connections. They passed over the man who won them the battle. Morgan was furious. He quit. He went home to his farm. "I'm done," he said. 1780, the war moved south, and America was losing badly. Charleston, 5,000. Americans captured. Camden, another American. Army destroyed and running for its life. Congress was desperate. They needed one man, the man who did not break, the man who did not quit. They sent a letter to Winchester. "General Morgan, we need you." He was 44 years old now, heavier, tired, but he went. Because King George still owed him one. January 1781, South Carolina. Hannah's Cowpens, a cattle pasture. Morgan had 600 men, tired militia, farmers. The British sent their best. Banastre Tarleton. Bloody band. His cavalry was fast. His reputation was brutal. His men had killed Americans who were trying to surrender. Morgan could not outrun him. So he decided to destroy him. He picked the battlefield on purpose, an open field, a river behind him, nowhere to run. Every military textbook said this was a terrible place to fight. That was exactly why Morgan chose it. The night before the battle, he did not give a speech. He walked through the camp. He sat by the fires. He showed the new recruits the scars on his back. "See these?" he said. "King George gave me 499. Tomorrow, we go collect the last one." Then he explained the plan. 3 lines. Line 1, 150 riflemen. 2 shots. Aim for the officers. Then fall back past line 2. Line 2, The militia. I know you don't like bayonets. 2 shots. Then run behind line 3. That's all I ask. Line 3. The Continental Regulars. The only men who can stand toe-to-toe. You do not move. You do not flinch. You shoot. Hidden behind a hill. William Washington's cavalry, waiting. January 17th. Sunrise. Tarleton charged. Just like Morgan knew he would. Fast, angry, arrogant. Line 1 fired. 2 shots. Officers dropped. Then they ran back like Morgan told them. Tarleton laughed. They're breaking! Line 2 fired. 2 shots. Then they ran too. Tarleton pushed harder. Finish them! He committed everything. And right then, Line 3 stood up. The Continental Regulars, calm. Not a man moved. Not a shot fired until they were 40 yards away. Then a wall of lead. The British front line vanished. At the same moment, Morgan gave the order that made history. Militia. Face about, fire! The men who had run away turned around and shot the British in the back. And then, horns. William Washington's cavalry hit them from the side. It was over in 45 minutes. Found 10 British dead, 500 captured. Tarleton escaped on a horse. Morgan lost 12 men, the greatest tactical victory of the entire war. Morgan got sick. The scars, the years, the pain. He resigned again and went home. He lived long enough to see America free. He lived long enough to see Washington become president. In 1794, Washington called on him one more time. The Whiskey Rebellion. Farmers in Pennsylvania refusing to pay tax. Washington sent Morgan to put it down. He did it without firing a shot. Daniel Morgan died in 1802, age 67. He never learned to read well. He never cared about politics. But he understood people. He understood fear. And he understood that sometimes the only way to win is to let the enemy think they've already won. They tried to break him with a whip. They gave him 499 lashes. He came back with a battle plan that beat the British Army. And he never did ask for that 500th one.